Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Secrets of the Viz. Today I have a very special guest, Tanya, who is here to talk about her movie color wheel. So over to you, Tanya.
Hello, Louis. Thank you for inviting me. I started with Tableau in the late 2022 and named a featured author in half of the year, something like that. I was doing different stuff, got acquainted to the community, and since the beginning of this year, people started asking me whether I'm taking orders in for Tableau development. So I started doing orders since May, and now I've moved to Georgia to do it more actively and organized way to start my small business here. So that's it.
That sounds awesome. You said that you have only started to use Tableau in the late 2022,
Yeah.
but you already have 5 bits of the day under your belt. So that's amazing work.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I have actually 22 or 23 visas on Tableau Public, but I don't publish everything that I do. I'm trying to do everything like perfectly. So when I'm satisfied with the result, publish. That's I know it's not a popular approach, but that's how I do it.
So let's talk through your design inspiration behind your Viz of the day, which is my movie color wheel.
Yeah, it's great. Okay, so this represents different color palettes extracted from the 28 movies, shots, and it maybe looks like a data art, but I wanted to make something practical. You can actually click on them and the demo graphs on the left will change their colors. The colors that go to the graphs are checked for the color blindness, and in the left bottom corner of the graph. You can just copy it and use it in your data visualization. For the process of color choosing to be more fulfilling, you can change from the dark mode to the white mode because colors play differently on the dark background and on the light background. As for this chart, inspiration came from the seasonal color wheel project by American artist and designer Sasha Duerr. She works with colors and natural dyes. She extracts these colors from different natural ingredients, and she travels like throughout the country, so she knows which ingredients are available in which region at which time of the year. She systematized her knowledge in these beautiful wheels. Each wheel represents a certain material like paper, iron, and each sector represents one type of natural ingredient, like flour or berry or something like that, available throughout the whole year. I just like these colors. She has different wheels for New York, for Pacific region and so on. Initially, I wanted to do just a small project connected to these colors, maybe the Voronoi diagrams, and I started experimenting. I extracted these colors as hex codes from several wheels. What I found out is that natural colors, they don't play at all on electronic screen. So you see these wheels, they are painted with a brush. So they are like a bit uneven, messy, but it adds some charm to this project. And when I put these colors and created some polygons or something like that, it just lost all its magic. They didn't play on the electronic screen. So I just gave up that idea. But then I started thinking maybe if natural colors don't look that good on the electronic screen, then the colors that were designed specifically for the electronic screen should look good.
Yes, I think this is a very unique way because you base your inspiration off an art piece. And I think one thing to point out is that the physical and digital realm renders colors differently. So you have something called a CMYK mode and RGB mode. So the RGB mode is something that you see on screen, which they mix color by addition to create more colors. Whereas for the physical realm, it is mostly around CMYK, which is cyan, magenta, yellow, and doing subtractive color mixing. So the colors for the physical and digital realm usually don't tally a one-to-one. So I have to give you additional kudos to match the colors as closely as possible. And just looking at the color wheel, it's a lot of colors. Did you assign each of the color individually, or is there a way that you found that could easily map the colors for each of the polygons?
I assigned an individual number to each polygon, and then I created a huge palette, which I put in the references. I did this with the help of code to make it faster. I had lists of the colors, and in the loop, I put this.
There's a lot. Very impressed by your patience to go through the entire palette.
Of course, it required some time, but yeah.
So for the data part of it, how did you create the data? I noticed that within your description, you pointed out a website called Movies in Color. Is that how you got all the hex code for each of the movies?
Yeah, I took all the colors from there. I actually had much more palettes. Then I did some manual choice because I wanted them to be, first of all, contrasting enough, to be unique inside the wheel, because many palettes look like they are just a bit duplicating each other. This graph, I created them with Tristan's tool, and the data for them, I just picked from the wheel. Here you've got the launch year, the IMDb rating, name of the movie, the director, the cinematography author.
So for the polygons, I know to create something like this, you probably need to self-join your data like a couple of times. Can you just walk us briefly on how you created the data set for you to draw the radar chart?
It was hard. Yeah, it's a set of small polygons. And to build it, I used Kevin Flowledge's tutorial on radials. With the help of that tutorial, I found the initial coordinates of each polygon. So I built circles. I've split them with radiuses and found the points for each polygons. Then I used the library from Python to pick each polygon, to squeeze it and round its corners. It actually took plenty of time. So in this wheel, there are a couple of lightning effects on the light background and on the dark. They have both this hidden background. It's just a copy of my face in an SVG format. I just put it on the background. And this also adds some volume to the chart. These are white polygons with thick dark borders. They are the same for the dark background. And so here they add just a bit more volume to the chart. And on the dark background, this white inside part makes them a little bit glowing, because I made these polygons just slightly transparent. And it was enough to make them look like they're just glowing in the dark.
That's a really cool trick. I never thought about using a SVG at the background to give that subtle border to each of the polygons. But yeah, to create this takes a lot of time, like you have just explained. And it's a real piece of art. You can even print this out and hang it at the wall, and it works perfectly as well.
Thank you so much. What I notice is that I always initially want to make something more complicated. And then I realized that the simpler the idea, the simpler the looks, is the better.
I think your process is very much rooted in your history in journalism. All the experience that you have as a journalist actually comes out in this biz. And that's what journalism is about, creating something complex and make it as easy as possible for your audience to read, because you don't want to just throw a bunch of numbers or charts to people. The idea is to communicate a story, and I think you've done this perfectly in this viz.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. My former job really influences everything I do. And it's something that comes from the experience when I was working with different experts as a journalist. They are trying to show every little detail, to discuss every single moment of their work, because it seems really important and interesting to them, because they are so into this field. When it comes to presenting the results of the work to the audience, people don't understand them. It's always a kind of a conflict, and people usually don't trust you initially. They think you are ruining everything, but in fact, you need to understand that just a passerby, he is not interested in your concepts and your work, so you have to do something to attract the attention of this person. When I was working in the daily newspaper, it has different articles, and sometimes these pieces are very small, and you have a whole story. Your task is to put this huge story into this piece, to put the opinion, to have the header, the citations, finalizing thoughts, and so on. And you have to put everything in this small piece. As a journalist, it was the hardest task, and I wanted to write huge volumes. By the time I was finishing, it was vice versa. I liked these small pieces because you understand that this is enough to tell any story. I actually was irritated when I had to write front page materials that occupied a couple of pages and you have to invent something in your head to add absolutely unnecessary information. So that's how your understanding of what's important changes. So that's it. And that influenced what I'm doing, because if you see, I like short forms. I don't make big quizzes. I really like when you can put everything on one page and see everything, understand in a second.
I imagine that is really challenging, but also a great way of learning how to tell stories in general, because nobody can take it away from you. It's honed through hardship and a lot of probably rejections as well, because you have to represent your story over and over again until it hits a critical mass. I really respect you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya, for spending time with us and walking through how you created this movie Color Wheel. There's a lot to learn, I'm sure. So thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. When I finished the graph, I found out that some movie directors appear much more often on my wheel than the others. First of all, it's Michel Gondry. I've got 4 movies out of 28 directed by him. Michel Gondry is the director of The Eternal Sunshine of Spotless Mind, his most famous piece, maybe. And the second one is Tim Burton, 3 out of 28. Why Michel Gondry? Why Tim Burton? And actually, I have some hypotheses about this, because both these directors, they are usually showing 2 worlds simultaneously in their works, like the real and the fantasy world. And usually there is some kind of contradiction between these worlds. They use color to show the difference between these 2 realities. I've got a letter after this was chosen the movies of the day. And the person told me that, the movie Ghost Dog is my favorite movie. And I'm so happy it's featured. And I wrote that I promise I will watch it in the upcoming weeks. So it's actually what I'm going to watch, really.
That's really nice.